right, welcome to episode number 3 of the Debo's Absurd After Party with my co-host here, Nick Delosier and Del. How are you, Nicholas?
Good to see you. Good to be here.
No races this weekend, so we decided to do a special Tuesday night episode.
Yeah, let's shoot the shit.
Let's see what goes down. We got my one of my all-time legends, if anyone's ever followed me on Instagram or knows me at all, my personal hero since I was a little kid, top 4 Mount Rushmore. I think I should name off some of these titles: a 4-time outdoor 250 champion, 2-time 500 outdoor champion, 2-time Supercross champion, 87 AMA Pro Athlete of the Year, and 4-time Motocross of Nations champion. One of my good friends, I'm lucky to call a friend, Mr. Rick Johnson. Thank you for calling in, brother.
What's up, Big Denny? I've been I'm number 3, so I'm actually on Mount Rushmore of the Debo show as well.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. That's probably the best debate you can have in any sport, of the Mount Rushmore of past athletes. So you are definitely on mine, and it's not always it's a healthy debate on it. We have a good group text thread, and what do you think, Nick? Who's on your Mount Rushmore?
On mine it'd be RV, RC, MC, and RJ.
Now Nicholas is 10 years younger than me. He was born in 90 or 80. So when I asked him if he had some Rick Johnson memories, he's like, I was like 6 when he won Anaheim.
Hey, man, dust off those VHS tapes and read up, bro.
He did.
I for sure did. And I can appreciate all of Ricky's contributions to the sport, his accomplishments and that. But when I first started in motocross, I had Denny Stevenson posters on my wall.
And, so that just shows how little he knew.
And Denny had Rick Johnson posters on his wall. So,
hey, honestly, there's so much debate on that, and I've gone back and forth with everybody on who's the best and the greatest of all times, and honestly, you can't do it. It's just if you look at sheer numbers, yeah, you can add numbers and say that's the best guy. And if it's in Supercross, it's MC. If it's so and so, if it's other stuff, it's Ricky. If it's but if you look at how dominant Hannah was, if he wouldn't have gotten hurt, and what would have happened to Bailey if he wouldn't have gotten hurt? I mean, there's just so many things that go into it. So if you want to just go sheer numbers, then just call the numbers. But when you look at the time frame and stuff like that, I hate to say who would be the greatest, because if you ask anybody that even resembles the top 10 or whatever, in their mind, on their best day, they would crush anybody. And I'd look at myself as I guess one of those guys, and there's days that I think I could beat anybody in the world, and there's days that I watch certain guys that I know they would beat me, but one race, one thing, it doesn't constitute it. But anyhow, I appreciate y'all put me up on the Mount Rushmore of moto. It's an honor.
Yeah, there's so many circumstances that go into motocross. I mean, the motorcycle, the team, every weekend, injuries, crashes. I've broken some bones, knocked out sometimes. Obviously, I dealt with a wrist injury. Your career was because of a wrist injury. It's a pretty gnarly fucking sport.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's so crazy. And now the performance curve is so much higher. I mean, if you look at what you started on with the 80s, and how you had to use the clutch to keep it in the power band to keep that little bastard revving the whole time. And now we have fuel-injected 450s that have the power curve is just completely linear. There's no dip in the power. There's nothing you got to ride through. The tires, the performance edge is like a radial tire for road racing, which is sketchy as all get out. And so, but the guys have to work on that fine edge, and that's where you see the big crashes now, like the Eli Tomac where it blew his friggin' boot off, or just these crazy crashes like from Chad, not the last one, but when he crashed at Millville and things like that. So the sport has changed quite a bit, but as you said, it is wicked how fast the bikes and how fast the guys go now.
Yeah, I was just actually messaging with Ricky Carmichael last week about before we came to Denver, and we were just laughing about the differences between a race and a 125 two-stroke compared to these 252 or four-strokes these days. And we did everything we could just to jump a triple. Nick's first bike he ever raced or bought, his dad bought it, my 1996 Great Western 125, which was a fire breather, but it was nothing compared to these 250Fs now. Wouldn't you say, Nick? Obviously.
No, definitely not. It was a blast to ride, but you for sure. You had to learn how to ride the bike in order to make it go fast. I mean, the 125 is a totally different thing than, you know, a 250 4-stroke and whatnot.
And that's a debate that Gilmore and I've had. Cody, you never can really trust what Cody's thinking because he might be out partying when he's trying to have this conversation. But we argued about the whether or not the power, which you just talked about, and the complete ridiculousness of these 450s these days, whether or not it's safer than racing a 250 bike, 250 2-stroke. And I argued it's not, simply because you're able to jump so much higher and farther and faster in such a short amount of span that you could on a 2-stroke.
I'll bet you that you could put a guy at the base of the triple. All right, so his wheel is he's just at the transition. Put the hole shot device on and let him drop the clutch, and I'll bet he clears the triple.
I don't doubt that in the least. I remember first time I saw Larry Ward riding a 250F, he did something similar. I think he crashed coming out of the corner right in front of the triple, picked it up, started, put it in first gear, and went right.
Yeah.
And that's when you just went, wow, those things are not even close to it. It's literally changed the sport, not necessarily in my favorite way. I think it's made racing much different. You were at the latest 2-stroke Red Bull Straight Rhythm, and I think you could really see the difference what the old 2-stroke days kind of brought back.
Well, yeah, and then you watch that Eli Tomac 2-stroke, whatever it is, and he's just like going, brah, he's just wringing the piss out of it, you know, and not letting off. I mean, I honestly think that if, you know, I said this a bunch of times, and maybe Ricky will listen to you or something, but I think the Monster Cup should be an all 250 race. What's it going to hurt bringing a 450 guy back down to a 250? Yes, you know, and I think the racing would be phenomenal. I think there would be more passing. There would be more inside moves and stuff instead of just coming straight in, you know, block pass and then take off. And I just think it would make the racing cooler. I mean, there's a reason why they eliminated 500 2-strokes for Supercross as well, because back when it was a Super Bowl in motocross, you know, Roger DeCoster was on a TM 400 back in the day. So I just think they need to look at it and go, well, maybe it's time to adjust it and maybe have an A and B main lights, just strictly a 250F class instead of a 450, and keep 450s for outdoors and GPs. I think, you know, that's where you can really see what they can do.
I agree. I mean, I think a 250 4-stroke almost puts out the amount of horsepower as a 250 2-stroke does. So really, what's the difference in what you got? You know, what we raced. So. But speaking of Eli Tomac, you know, he's one of my favorite subjects, and you and I have spoken a little bit about it, and he's obviously got the talent and speed to be one of the fastest in the world at any given moment. But then there's that hiccup where Eli Tomac shows up. What's your opinion of something who's obviously won multiple titles, dealt with the ups and downs, the inconsistencies that can happen on the track, the mental difficulties that it takes to win a title after having a shitty weekend? What's your take on Eli? And this isn't the bash on him. I mean, obviously.
No. I'm not bagging on him at all. But,
for sure.
But to me, because the guy is phenomenal. I mean, I coached him. I mean, John and Eli's mom hired me to coach Eli for a little bit. Like, we did some concrete starts out at Star West or something like that, and we did a couple different things. And I watched that kid at Mammoth on an 80 go so fast. He reminded me of Buddy Antonez back when he was like a R&D factory Suzuki kid. Just such phenomenal speed. And he still has that today. He still carries so much speed. But and like I said, I'll probably get shot for this, but I think he's too coddled. I think, you know, it's one thing to have supportive parents, and I think it's awesome that his parents, they love him, they do everything for him, but I think that creates a problem when there's trouble, because I see Eli, when he has problems, it's not until in between the race that he figures them out and he comes back. And how much of an adjustment can you make to go from 8th to 1st? I mean, that doesn't seem right to me. And so to me, it's like he goes back and he looks for an answer from his engineers, from his crew, from all this different stuff. And if you have somebody like a Ricky Carmichael, that guy could bend, or Danny Chandler, bend his bars upside down. They'll find a way to go fast. You know, like if you watch Ricky Carmichael's lines from practice to the end of practice, to the first moto, to the last moto, completely different. Completely different. Millville, for instance, Ricky would just be railing it, just like, just wide open, carrying all the speed. The last moto, when I was the coach for Sebastian Tortelli, I'm watching RC come in. He comes straight down the inside, pivots, turns, and leaves straight up the inside. So he's not trying to use straightaway speed. He's making his time on the entry and then on the exit and blowing away the turn, where everybody else, Sebastian at that point, is trying to run the same line that he ran in the first moto, and he's getting his ass kicked. So I think that Eli needs to be a little bit more of a man and take care of his own shit and not have somebody tell him the answer that he's looking for, because he's so talented and so strong. And I mean, you look at his face and you look at his cadence of breathing when he steps onto the podium. The guy trains his balls off. There's no doubt about that.
Not even sweating, not even breathing heavy.
No, he looks fine. But then you look at his face when he has a bad moto. It's like he's completely lost.
It's like someone shot his dog.
Exactly. I'm going, what the fuck? Can I say at the F word on this?
You can say whatever the fuck you want.
All right, so what the fuck is going on? How do you go from being the best guy to crumbling? And that's where I think that his family and everybody around him has so much faith in him. They always have an answer for him. And that's where I don't see Eli figuring shit out in the middle of a bad event and then coming back. That's what you have to figure out.
It's almost like a football coach. I love it. I know Nick's favorite sport is football. Easily. But a football team and a good coach is able to make adjustments at half. They might be getting blown out the first half, yet come back the second half with a new adjustment, new playing, seeing what the field's like, the players are like. And I think that's what you're saying with Eli, is the ability to overcome a little adversity, make some changes during the race, or in between motos, wherever it takes, and not allowing those adversities or mistakes to beat you down for the rest of the day.
Well, and also like the greats like Tom Brady and stuff like that they said that he's coached very, very well, but when shit goes bad, he figures it out. He finds another guy open. He knows when to ground the ball. He knows when to do this or when to do that. And that's what the greats do. That's when Michael Jordan or Walter Payton or you name any athlete that was the best. And that's why I use Ricky Carmichael. I'll never forget that I was at Glen Helen when he swept every race, and he ate shit so hard in practice. I mean, so hard. I was right there. I mean, I heard it. It knocked every ounce of wind out of him. I go over to him. He's on his hands and knees, and he's trying to breathe. He's going, and he's got, that bitching sound you make when you go,
Right, when you got no breath. You have no air. You're just like searching for air.
You're trying to cry. You're trying to scream for help. You're trying to do something, but nothing comes out except that stupid freaking sound. And he's like, I'm like, you okay? You okay? Because he's on that tabletop right where you come on the starting line at Glen Helen.
Right.
And he's like, no, leave me alone. And he's like, spit dirt out and looks like blood's coming out of his nose. And I try to help him, and he's like, no. So they pick up his bike, and he's shaking. Like I thought he broke his body in two. And he's shaking, and he starts the bike. He's like, and he goes out there, and he sets it the fastest time. Just like, boom, like completely bent up and all screwed up and everything. And then he goes out and dominates both motos. That's a guy that, Jeannie Carmichael, Mr. Carmichael, loved him and adored him, but that's figuring your shit out in a dark time, and that's what I think Eli needs a little bit.
That's because his mom Jeannie would have said, "Get the fuck up," and your practice session isn't done. Basically.
Yeah, and then you look at Eli every time he goes down, he takes.
This is a right-handed turn.
A good 3 minutes to get up.
You have to do a half hour of right-handed turns.
Yeah, and like Nick just said, that with Eli, when Eli goes down,
there's no sense of urgency to get back in the race. He's filling with his pants. He's messing with his levers.
There's no sense of urgency, and that's right. He he'll mess with his pants, he'll check his levers, and everybody else runs to the bike and jumps on the thing and just starts kickstarting. It doesn't half the time their leg could be broken, don't even know it. But yeah.
Seems like for him, whenever something goes wrong, everything is wrong.
The bottom drops out.
Yeah.
Right, and that's personal. You know what I mean? That's something within yourself that you have to find, because like I figured out in my career that if I eat shit really hard, if I get back on the bike before the pain sets in, because when you eat shit really, really hard,
you can keep the adrenaline running.
you don't know if your shit's broke
Yeah,
or not.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? You're like, fuck. And so you get up, you grab it, but if you go to grab the bike and your arm doesn't move or your shoulder dislocates or something like that, if it's functional, you'll know. But a lot of times when it's just pain, you can get on the bike, get going. So I always tell people, and I told my kids, if you crash, get up as quick as you can, get on your bike, start it, and start going.
Yeah,
Either A, the pain's going to subside, or B, you're on the bike and you're the quickest way to the hospital. All ass to the pits, or go straight to the ambulance.
And that's why we were just texting about that in our thread last couple of weeks ago. That we were talking about some of our biggest crashes. And I remember crashing at a local race. Just hit this tabletop. I went to kind of scrub it. All of a sudden, my 125 is gone beneath me. I'm flying through the air at like 30 mile an hour. I hit the ground, sky, dirt. All I can do is just jump up as fast as I can. I go to grab my bike, and I realize that my arm is broken. It's like a full L shape. It's just bent in half. And that's that point where and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, I'm really hurt.
Yeah, stop.
This hurts. Now it's then the rush of pain and shock hits you that you broke a bone. But yeah, that initial sense of like, I got to get to my bike and get on it before you realize that you might be hurt. So yeah, absolutely. So tell me about Ricky. What was one of your worst crashes you've ever had that you remember?
The what?
One of your worst crashes you've had when you've just hit the dirt, skylight.
Well, so the one that hurt the worst was I dislocated my hip in St. Louis. It was 1983, second moto. I had a fever from the first moto, and I actually prayed to God. I said, God, I don't care if I lose or drive. I just want this thing blows up. I just want to get through it. I dislocated my hip, and I think that was God kind of saying, okay, asshole, let's see how tough you are. Anyhow, my leg was ripped around my body and stuff like that.
I actually raced that track. It was in one of the pits that you crashed, right? Because they had pits dug out.
It was the jump coming back towards the starting line. I just missed time to jump and landed right in the square edge, and it popped me up over the bars, and I was flying through the air. And I thought, I'll just get my feet on the ground, start rolling, so I can get back on my bike.
Yep.
Well, my right leg, I was like flying through the air sideways. My right leg missed the ground, and my left leg did, and it just popped it out. But probably the funniest one was one of my last ones at the last San Diego Supercross. We're on press day, and they had those. Remember how square they used to make the friggin' whoops?
Yeah, the Mickey Thompson whoops. Yeah, they were just square edge. They were just holes dug in the ground.
Right, they take a backhoe and square them out, so you couldn't go across them. Well, anyways, they had like a triple, then a whoop section, and then turn left at home plate and go down like the first base line. Well, anyways, I come off of that and I just cased the triple just a little bit. But with my hand being as screwed up as it was, it knocked my hand off the grip, and I re-gripped, and the throttle was wide open. So now my ass is on, because normally you'd land and you start to decelerate, so you could slow down, get to second gear, and start timing the whoops. Well, my ass is hanging off the back, third gear wide open, and I'm like, oh, shit. So I hit those whoops, and they're square, so probably the first one's 3 foot, and it just hits me in the ass, and I clear all the whoops. I clear the berm in the corner.
And you hit the wall. I was there that day.
And I landed, and I hit the 4x8 sheets of plywood.
Oh man!
And I knocked them down, and I had scratches from the little batter's box or whatever. And I'll never forget. I'm laying there, and I'm making that sound because my face is bleeding, my lips are bleeding. I broke my helmet, and I'm like, holy shit! And it's all dark, and all of a sudden, this Mexican guy goes over and picks up the plywood. He's like, hey, man, you okay? And I'm like, my throttle's stuck. And then Ron Hegel was working on my bike, and I start the bike, and I'm waiting for it to take off, and nothing. So then it was actually later that week. We went to Tokyo for the big egg race. Real good timing, right in the middle of the Supercross season. We go to Japan to do a race.
Why not?
And I come back. I come back, so next thing I know, I have my throttle stick going to a field. And I was able to let go of the throttle and realize that it wasn't my throttle, that my hand had a mind of its own. And that's when I retired. That was right before Atlanta, and I didn't go to Atlanta, and then went to Daytona and announced my retirement. So good times.
Dirt bikes, fucking rotten little bitches.
That was 1990?
They are, but man,
they sure were fun.
Awesome,
yeah, and what a life. So that was 90 then that happened? Or 91?
That was 1991.
91. That's right. Because I remember I was behind you, I think, in Daytona. You crashed on a step-on, step-off.
That was in 1990. So I had won Gainesville, where I broke it originally, and then I couldn't ride all week because my hand was so sore from riding at Gainesville, and so I didn't do so well in the qualified heats, and then you saw me, it came up, and I was leaning forward, had to hit the gas, I couldn't twist my wrist, and over the bars, and broke my hand again. So I broke my hand, and then I had to have, which leads me to our story in Tampa. So I break my hand, like my pinky bone, the hand behind the metacarpal behind my pinky bone.
Right.
I start riding too soon, and this starts non-union. Well, I'm down in Florida, and for getting ready for Tampa out at Ocala, riding, and my hand hurts so bad. I go see your hand specialist, and he goes, the thing's non-union, you need a surgery. So I'm down drinking beers and stuff, and that's when you kicked everybody's ass at Tampa. And I remember a lot of people don't know the story. You've heard it 1,000 times, but when you first won, watching your dad cry and watching you guys embrace each other was just, I think, one of the most beautiful things, because it was so awesome. It's like you've arrived, all the hard work that your parents and everybody put in, all the
Absolutely.
shit that you had to go through, that you've did it, and then you were whipping everybody's ass so easily back then. So I watched you, and it's like you won, and you're like, you take your helmet off, put your goggles around your neck, put your hat on, your dad walks by. I didn't think fist bumps were even going back then, but you did the equivalent of a fist bump, business as usual. So then that night in the Holiday Inn, your dad's there, and I think I had 3 beers, and so I was drunk, and I'm like, Don, I need to talk to you, and he's like, what? So I proceeded to yell at your dad, I'm like, don't you fucking ever take these things for granted, because, dude, let me just tell you. And so I went into the whole story about how much I loved watching how great it was for you to celebrate your first win with your dad, and how you were doing that, and then all of a sudden you take
one for granted. Yeah,
complacent.
No, and it stuck with me forever, my whole entire career. That someone that of you that I worshipped to coming up with that type of advice, and as we've all learned, that you never know. Anyone who's ever raced a motocross bike, you never know when your last win's your last win. And you should always treat it as though it's your first, because that's why we got on these things. Other than having fun and having the most outrageous time of our life, it was the simple fact of once you start winning, man, it's so addictive, and you just got to keep treating it like it's the first time, because you don't want to lose that feeling.
Right, and that's the thing, man. Like you said, it's just, and it does, because once you win, it's a double-edged sword, because now that's your high. It's just like. It's like drugs, man. You're always chasing the first high. It's like, you talk to any crackhead or any guy that's ever, done morphine, or not morphine, heroin or whatever, is that they do that first experience. Like I watched that, the Dirt on, when Nicky Sixx and Tommy Lee and all different stuff, and saying that Nicky Sixx, how much money he was spending on heroin trying to get that first high over and over again. And as a racer, I mean, you remember like being just a kid, at a local track, and now you're winning in front of all these people and everything. That's your first major. That's motocross equivalent to heroin.
No, you can't say it any more than that, and it's hard to, as Nick and I have talked about a couple of times on the show about the Supercross current season, and the ability of Cooper Webb to go through his utter success that he had on Yamahas, on 250s, national title, 2 Supercross titles, jumped on a 450 right away, was kicking ass, and then had 2 struggling years at factory Yamaha. I personally had written him off. We had debated. Nick, what did you say? What did you think about Coop?
I didn't really have an opinion, but obviously he was addicted to the feeling of winning, and he found his way back to it.
Yeah, and I mean, you've always been following the series. How does one manage to do that? I mean, once you've fallen off the train of moto, to come back from almost, not that he was obscure, but he was definitely not what he was, to what he has been accomplishing this year. What do you think about that?
Well, I think I want to compare what he was doing on a Yamaha when he got on a 450 to Ivan Tedesco. I think Ivan was so strong and everything, and then you watch what Blake Baggett was doing as well. Is when I first started working with Blake, he was trying to ride a 450 like a 250F, and you can't. I mean, everything from the exercises, like all the stuff that that Blake was doing, he was doing a lot of like planks and push-ups. I'm like, how much rows do you do? You know, I mean, what are you doing for rowing? Are you doing it to your hips? Are you this and that? And like, I touch his shoulders. He's like, those hurt. And I'm like, well, because you're weak. On a 250F, you can flow with the bike and you can lean into it and you can hit the throttle a lot harder. And when I saw Cooper Webb get on the 450, he was trying to do the same thing because that was so successful in a lights bike, hammering the gas, like doing the hard whips and the hard and you know, hammering, you know, going to 90% throttle and this and that. But what we found when we worked with the engineers at Suzuki, that Blake Baggett was using like 16% clutch the whole time. So he wasn't using the clutch to help him. He thought he was. He was actually using the clutch to hold him back, holding that power back. And so then you watch Coop now, the way he rolls through the corners, and he's patient and he's smooth with the throttle, and Ian and Roger and the whole KTM crew have given him the bike that he's comfortable with, as well as that steel frame. That steel frame is more forgiving. It's softer. It's more supple. It's similar to the old bikes that we used to run. It has a little bit of flex. It's not so nervous. And Coop has adapted to it, as well as completely changed his riding style. Like Eli Tomac was kind of the inventor, I would say, of the standing on the pegs to a lot of these berms. But now with Coop's small frame, the dude stands on the pegs almost all the time. It's amazing. I'm like, holy shit, he didn't put his feet down, you know? And so now you're keeping even pressure on the tires to track through the corners. And so he's reinvented himself. Like, if you watch the way he rides, and the name in that, but his body structure, his ability to relax, and everything that he's doing, he's a different guy than he was on that Yamaha. And I don't want to think it was all the Yamaha. I think it's more he reinvented himself.
Did you get a chance to watch Denver, that heat race between Eli and Coop, where they were cat and mousing each other?
No, I didn't get to watch that one. I watched the main event, but no, I didn't get to see that.
Dave, that was where...
That was a perfect example of what Rick's talking about right now.
Perfect example, yeah. If you get a chance to watch it on YouTube or something, pull up the 450, I think it was Heat 2, of Cooper being able to put that bike anywhere he wanted.
He was a surgeon with that thing.
And the fact that this KTM allowed him to put it, I mean, it takes two. It's obviously, you have to have the bike set up correctly. And so it's a perfect example of what you said. So that's why I love listening to you, because you pick the things out that we see, but we're not really sure what we're seeing. So I highly suggest you check it out, because he was putting that bike wherever he wanted. He was moving around. You know, Eli has more of a wider kind of flowing type deal, but yeah, Coop was still just diving in and out with confidence and making the bike stick, keeping his feet on the pegs. The bike would not ever chop out on him, like you were saying, with equal weight distribution. Incredible analyst right there.
It's a little bit of like Wardy and I. Eli's a little bigger. So to stop, and it might not be is that, like, I would try to ride Wardy's lines, like what we wanted in Seattle. He won the first night because I was out in front, and then he caught me, and then I tried to run his lines on the inside. I'm getting budged up, and I'm not, and he's able to come in, slow down, and accelerate, because he was probably 30 pounds lighter than me, and I have a real long torso. And so you have Eli, who's bigger, who needs to run outsides, keep the bike rolling, not slow down as much, and keep it going, where Coop can come in, stop, almost do like a trials turn, lean into it, and now with this fuel injection, he can be so smooth with the throttle that it's not going raw, it's not hitting, you're not letting out the clutch, and it's hitting way up in the power range. So it goes where Eli has to go, that opens the door for somebody like a Cooper Webb to come on the inside and mess him up. And that's where you saw Eli, when he got out in front and by himself, he's keeping his speed going, and he's not worried about who's on the inside of him.
Yep. No, that's exactly. We got to watch it live that night, and it was pretty cool to see just the way they could ride, the way when Eli's is on, the way Cooper rode smart, the way he came through the pack. He didn't let Savacci get in his head, Eli's teammate, and put himself in second in an 18-point advantage going in these final two rounds.
Yeah, and so it's going to be interesting, because Eli does so well when the pressure's off, but when the pressure comes on, it's he's a different guy. So is he what Eli Tomac is going to show up? I hope I'm going to be in Vegas. I'm going to be there with some friends of mine and watching what's going on. And I would love to see a couple, just, to change pace a little bit. A couple of things that if I was the AMA or Clear Channel, that I would change. One is I would get rid of whole shot devices so that there's more mistakes coming into the first turn. It's going to slow them down about 10 miles an hour.
That's funny. I just read someone posting that on Racer X or something. I never. They're talking about the new grates that are there and how that takes away a lot of the starting advantage that people what we had to learn. And then the starting device. That's I
mean, everybody's got one, so it's not like by you having one, you're going to have an advantage over somebody because we all have them.
And it's a huge advantage. Obviously, it takes away the wheeling aspect, the weight distribution aspect.
Well, I think it'd be an advantage over somebody that does not have one.
The first turn?
Well, that's another thing I'd read. Yeah, I didn't realize that by everybody getting off the gate even, you're putting all 22 guys in the first turn about the same time as well. It's just some examples I didn't even consider, and an interesting take. They're making things easier for everybody instead of keeping them more difficult. And the easier you make for everybody, the more apt it is that guys shouldn't be in positions that they find themselves in.
Yeah, it takes away from the talent necessary to excel, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and then in the heat, so they try to judge it for the heat race. I used to argue with the AMA reps. I'm like, you need to open up the first turn. They said, well, that's going to give the inside too much of an advantage. I don't care. I want to see people get around the first turn.
Yeah, I don't want to see I don't want to see the inside guy getting pinched off and dive bombing everybody.
Well, yeah, or he's hitting the top blocks that are now like bouncy balls and they throw you all over the place. And they said, well, there was no problem in the heat races. In the heat races, you have 3/4 of the field that is like stoked to be there. They don't even try.
Yeah, intensity level is about 20% less, 30% less.
Right, so they rev their bikes and they're acting like, yeah, here I go. But they really don't want to be in the first turn. But now when you put everybody out there for the main event, everyone's going for blood. So I'd like to slow it down. The other thing I'd like to see is that competition yellow that we did in the truck races. Let's say if it's a 20, I'm just using because now we're on time. If it's a 20-lap main event, at lap 10, throw the yellow, stagger them up, line them up, stagger them the way they do now, and then let them go. So now you're not going to kill yourself in the first turn because you're going to get a shot back at it. And the whole thing with the restart is not that you can pass a bunch of guys, but you basically gap it. So if you get a whole shot, you lead the first lap, you get an extra point, for leading that. So that's going to push those guys to do that. But then I want to see a race at the end. I don't want to lead.
Yeah, and that happened this year. There was one of the events that got red flagged at the beginning or about halfway through. And that's when Blake Baggett ended up coming up and winning. That was an amazing race. It's like, man, here everybody is bunched together. Who's going to make the passes quick? And agree that anything to make a good race at the end of the series or end of 20 laps or 28 laps nowadays. These races, these tracks are so short.
Yeah, but also the change the track if you need to. If no one's passing, there's things that they can do to make the track more racy and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, we haven't done that. NASCAR is one of the oldest, is probably the oldest racing in America. And they're changing it weekly because, why? It's a show. We as racers think, oh, man, I'm the best. I'm the guy who trains the hardest and I make the most money. I'm the when we were racing Craftsman trucks and NASCAR, when one of our off-road guys got on the radio and started MFing another drivers, this and that, and it came out on the TV, they sat us down and said, listen, assholes, I don't know who you think you are, but we're in the entertainment business. If people aren't entertained, they're not going to watch, and no one's going to come. So if you want to go out and ride around in the desert by yourself and tell everybody how awesome you are, go for it. But when you're here, this is about the show, and Supercross has to remember that. If people aren't entertained, I mean, how many times have you got up and walked away to go take a piss or get a beer halfway through the main event because you as an experienced racer see nothing's going to happen. This guy's going to make a couple points here. This guy's going to stay out in front. Blah blah blah. I want to see fights.
They get to the point where they've all settled in. It's like, okay, I'm gonna
follow the leader at the end.
And that's a lot of the problem within the series too, is that everybody knows I'm a 6th place guy, I'm an 8th place guy. Outdoors is coming up. You know, that's just,
Yeah.
and that's what I think. That's why I think the series is done right now. Is I don't think any riders are going to get in there and mix it up with Eli and Coop and fuck up the points, because what do they care? You know, that they just want to get through these last 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Get to a off weekend and then head to the opener at Hangtown. And if you brought people together, maybe if you brought in a chase at the end, who knows? But let's change subjects real quick. You brought in racing, car racing, truck racing. What did you? We just watched your Frozen Rush race when you were racing on the snow, that Red Bull shit.
Yeah.
What was that shit like? That looked like fucking chaos.
Oh, it was so wicked. So, a guy named Pete Brinkerhoff was the one that came up to me at a truck race and says, "Hey, do you think you could drive a Pro 4 on a ski slope?" I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, I don't know if
can we please? Can I have a shot at it?
So we went to BF Goodrich, and they provided tires. They made special, like they made them in Sweden, where they make their ice race tires and stuff like that, and put longer studs on it. We took I was racing for Menzies Motorsports at the time. We went out to this place in Tahoe called Sierra Tahoe, lined them up, and then I drove around the snow, and it looked bitching. And so then I got to do I forget what year it was, but anyways, it was on a Valentine's Day, and back in Maine, they let me set up a track to just do a demonstration. So it's like the track was way gnarly. It had like black diamond climbs and all kinds of stuff. And I did 2 demonstrations on Valentine's Day. And they said, "What do you think about doing a race?" And so they said, so that's when we had a couple different ones. I ended up winning the first one, and then Bryce Menzies won the second 2. But the problem with the snow is that you can't see. You know, you're coming down the hill, and you know there's a jump there, and you see no contrast, you know, because we're racing at noon, and so the sun's coming down. There's no shadows. You don't know if it's cupped out or whatever. And you'd hit shit, and it would knock the crap out of you because
you weren't braced for it.
You couldn't tell.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You don't know. You just can't see. And so it was one of the gnarliest things and one of the coolest things at the same time, because you're freezing your ass off. The one year was like 12 below zero. And so the intakes on the carburetors would freeze, and so the last couple laps you'd be like, pop, 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 you know, pumping the gas, trying to keep it going. And
then how about the roost? How about the roost?
Oh, the roost, man! It would hit you and just it'd freeze. Because I wore a moto helmet because I wanted tear-offs and I wanted to be able to duck. But I would wear like a ski mask to cover my face and stuff like that, and it would hit you, and you know it wasn't. Well, it was bitched and it was clean, so you just wiped it off. So it wasn't that bad. And the way they set the tracks up is that we were only in each other's roost for a little bit, because that was the problem. And so we'd start off, we'd go head-to-head for a little bit, then we'd do a separate lap, then we'd cross over, then cross it back over, and cross back over. And so they tried to keep it minimal, because the snow roost would blind you. You couldn't see anything, and you don't have a co-driver. You don't have anyone telling you where to go, and you're trying to look out the side window to see where the hell you're at. It's like driving in the fog. So you had to try to be ahead of the other guy.
That looked gnarly. How come they stopped doing it? Just cost?
It was one of their highest viewed deals, because everyone loved it. Like, everyone's imagining, just like you, dude, if I could go to a ski resort, it's like riding a motorbike on a golf course.
I think about just having one of those trucks in a neighborhood. Just like I just want to yards, hit everybody's yards, destroy them. Go to, like you said, go to the golf course.
A golf course would be fun.
Hit the nearest park, you know, just destroy them, jumping everything. Yeah, I mean, how much horse does one of those things have? Like 500 horsepower in one of those trucks?
Oh shit, 500 my ass. That's the smaller trucks. We're running 900.
Oh my god, that's insane.
Yeah, it is. It's like when you're a kid and the first time you get on a 125 and you just feel that power, and the wheels are bigger, so you're not falling in the holes and stuff like that, and you feel like a man. You're just like, I'm on a freaking bike now.
Yeah,
and that's the way you feel on these things.
I remember the first time I rode a 125, I was like 13, and I was already getting I was like five, or it was by the time I was 14, I was probably 5'10", and Team Green still got me on a mini bike. But I loved getting on the 125, just like he said, because it had so much more power. I didn't have to worry about clunking out the forks over every jump. I could hit every jump as fast as I wanted to go and just air it out, because I knew it wouldn't. I only weighed probably 100 pounds, so I definitely wasn't going to compress the suspension too far. But yeah, that was a great feeling, getting off a little piece of shit mini bike. So that must be like getting out of my little Chevy pickup into one of those fucking trucks.
Oh yeah, when you well, for me, being, I'm 54 years old. Am I 55 now?
I looked it up. You're only 6 years older than I am. So you're like, yeah, July 6th birthday,
so,
right?
Yep, you got it.
Nice.
So, as they say, with age comes a cage, because now I still drive. I think I'm a better race driver. Obviously, my body's not in as near shape, but I can run. I can run my pace, and I don't fall out of the seat, which means like getting your tongue stuck in the wheels, as Brian Lewis used to say. So I can keep pace, and I can run hard, and at the end of the day, it makes me feel like a kid. So that's why everyone kind of wonders, why do you keep doing it? Well, I mean, if you had the opportunity to race as aggressive as you did at the peak of your Supercross career in something else, wouldn't you do it?
Absolutely, yes. Especially some of the roll cage.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it still hurts. I mean, I talked to Travis Pastrana. He said one of the most painful things he ever did was he rolled one of the short course trucks, because everyone thinks, it's got a roll cage. It beats the shit out of you.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like it rips your guts out when you hit so hard. But anyhow.
How about, let's talk real quickly before we wrap this up here in a little bit. Motocross of Nations.
Yeah, that was tough.
What's going on? What's going on with this world?
Well, for one, I think we're in a generation of groomed tracks.
Which do you remember? Which do you buy more? The excuse that we are obviously a Supercross 90% focused country now, or two, that their schedule's too long, or three, I don't know, they're just millennials.
Honestly, I think it's a little bit of everything. Because here's the thing: is that when you're Eli Tomac and you're paid to win that, and then I had a little bit of this, so I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to get my ass chewed out for it, because
good.
I worked my balls off when it came to the 500 championship in '86 when David beat me, and David beat me clear-handed, but I had the thought in my head, if I get second, I still had a great year. I won Supercross and I won the outdoors, so I'm not making an excuse. Man, I gave it everything I wanted. I wanted that championship, but at the end of the day, and I didn't think about this until later in my career, that I was like, you know what, I still could have a good year if I get second or third or whatever, But then every weekend I would fight my ass off and peel the scabs off my chest from David Bailey roosting me so hard. And so when you got someone like Eli Tomac that goes out there and wins this, wins that, and has all these great things, and then gets there, it's kind of like, is this really important? And who's, all of that.
I think it's as much as people in their ear telling them it's not. You don't need to do this. The teams are now saying it.
Yeah.
The man friends are telling them that.
Well, but I also think that Americans are in a generation of groomed tracks. In Southern California, I think a lot of the guys were fast back in the day because we had these tracks that were like 2 feet wide, or Palm Avenue or something like that, where it's just a big piece of shit, and you're constantly manipulating traction and losing the front wheel and this and that. But now now everyone practices on groomed tracks. I think there needs to be some of just riding to ride. Go do cliffs. Go do freestyle. Go do this. Go do not freestyle, like flips and shit like that.
Just go learn where your bike does and weird deals.
Exactly. And you know what? Go to a dirt track and learn how to slide. Go to Eric Bosham's flat track school and really learn how to slide a bike. It's kind of an art that's forgotten. But you see Webb sliding pretty damn good now. So a couple things. One is I don't think their heart was in it. Two, I was disappointed that they didn't adapt. They all just kept bringing a bigger hammer. And Crowley and those guys were just
flowing. They were so flowing. Their flowing speed in the corner. I was just. Because I watch the GPs pretty regularly on CBS Sports, but to watch Airlanes and, like you said, Crowley and just Tommy Searle back in ninth, their corner speed is just so much different. Well, like you said, the harder Justin tried, the harder Eli tried, the harder Aaron tried, they're just blowing these corners up. I mean, they're just pointing and shooting. They're trying to come in as hard as they can, blowing the fuck out of the center of it, and then losing all their horsepower coming out of it. While, Airlanes is on his foot peg, standing up the entire way, and just flowing all the way around the outside of the thing, and not even losing an ounce of speed on the exit.
And that's where I reference back to the Ricky Carmichael. You adjust your line to the track. You don't try to make the track adjust to you, and you there's only so much you can do with suspension. You can't, you go, okay, well, I got to lean a little bit more forward, a little bit more back. And you watch Hurlings, he does this weird thing where he's on the back, but he's not completely off the back. Like his ass is off the back, but his knee's in front of his ankle, so he's light through the middle. And that's what Jean-Michel Bale did and taught me. When I watched him, I'm like, this son of a, how is he going so damn fast? And it's like, I'm wide open. I can't go any faster. And I felt like Eli Tomac in that two-stroke thing where he's pinned everywhere. And I'm like, oh, he's not coming in, as you said, coming in straight in, blowing out the middle and coming off. And that's what I would do because I'm used to more hard-packed California tracks, and you can use that. You can use that banging off the berm to carry your speed. Where you watch Hurlings and Drulli and some of the other guys just come through, and they're really light, and they spread the load out, and they carry so much speed, and they have like fucking 8 mile an hour on the exit of the turn, which translated to 20 miles an hour at the other end. And it's like the American guys, as you said, just kept coming in going, I'm going to hammer, I'm going to come in harder, I'm going to hit the turn harder, I'm going to come in harder, hit the turn harder. And they didn't figure it out. And, that's a lot of pressure, but still, they were the men picked for the job, and they failed. It
was a good time though. It was a hell of a party, I'll tell you that. We came at Thursday night, rolling fun. We got in. We got up on a hillside parking spot right above the pit bike track, and it was like we didn't leave there till Monday. So it was like a small commune for the whole 5 days we were there, but it never stopped raining, which is never fun. It's fun for us as a fan, but as a rider, you're like in a truck, you're back and going, man, is it ever going to stop fucking raining? Which is, I think, a big play in a rider's head as well. But back to the good times. I know I missed you Sunday night. Gilmore ended up running into you up at the Red Bull tent. I think we had just had enough, and we had walked through so much mud that weekend that we were back at our camper, and I'm bummed I didn't get to see you that night.
Yeah, it was, and honestly, I couldn't have been more proud of the Team Puerto Rico guys. Yeah, I mean, the controversy that went on there, oh my God, it was so nuts.
That's right. That was your deal. Let's say, yes, don't mean to interrupt you. That was, I had kind of forgotten that, and the fact of seeing Kevin and Travis and Sipes just being hollered around the entire track, which is what I've always watched, the videos of that event. And have the American fan base, if not the entire world fan base, more encapsulated by those three than some of their own countrymen riders.
That was 95% of the reason I went.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, and the things that were happening through that whole thing, all the way, like shit that people will never know, okay? Which I'll tell some of it. So at the beginning, before the race, I'm talking to Todd Jacobs, and Travis has got that deal with his knee. And now everyone thinks, oh, it's a knee injury. No, if he hits that thing wrong and he pops the thing in, he could bleed out. So I was literally asking the FIM and the AMA, what's the protocol if guys get hurt? Are we ambulancing them? Are we doing this? Does every medic have a tourniquet? Because if Travis popped that knee, he could have bled out and died.
He would have cut off like one of the blood vessels right in his leg. Is that not what we see in football players sometimes, right?
Exactly, if it blew that artery apart, which that's kind of what he did before, if he blew that out, he could die. I mean, he could literally die, and he couldn't stand up. He could barely stand up, or he couldn't sit down. When he would go around corners, he would have to take his foot and put it out by the front. And it didn't matter if it was on the inside or on the outside. And then Kevin was so damn tired before the last race, and Sipes. Sipes, man, that guy's such a stud. I mean, just everything that they did, and they went out that last moto, and I said, here's what I want for you guys, and I told this to Ziggy at Geico, Factory Connection. I said, I want you guys to go out and get a hero's goodbye. I said, I don't care how you do in the race. I said, just go out and ride around and then get out of the way from everybody. You know, don't try to get into the first turn. Don't create it. Don't mess anybody up. Everyone's going for this. You know, they've given us this opportunity, but you guys deserve this, man. They love you. They love you so much, man. And sure enough, Travis first goes, I can't ride. Then he goes, I'm riding. So I'm running back and forth, hobbling back and forth. And next thing you know, the dumb son of a bitch goes out there and pulls a backflip on the parade.
Yeah, we were standing right there when he does it, man. And yeah, I mean, what was why did Travis put himself behind the 8-ball so bad and ride that damn 2-stroke? Why didn't he just get on a 4-stroke and make his life a little easier?
Well, honestly, I didn't. I think it was a better deal. We stayed committed because I'm like literally on my calendar book. I have the thing, and it was just Sipes, Pastrana, and Mac. 2 strokes, because this was
it was just going to be
Ronnie Mac's idea.
Sure, it was just supposed to be a fun chaotic type experience more than what it turned into, obviously.
Well, and Ronnie Mac was committed. I mean, everything. Everything was we were solid, and then he goes and we're going to make the announcement, and he busts his ass. The thing bogs at a Nitro Circus show, and he broke his ankle. You know, he chased the shit out of it and hurt himself and was all tore up and you know, the wheels fell off. Those guys did some partying at Unadilla after they allowed us to announce it. And so the next day I'm on a flight home and getting calls, and it was on and off so many different times. But at the end of the day, honestly, it was Ronnie Mac's idea. The original team squad was supposed to be Ronnie Mac, when I first got the call, Travis Pastrana, and Kevin Windham. But Kevin was like tipping the scales at 220-something, and he's like, I'm not riding a 125. There's no way. And then Travis wanted to ride his Quadzilla or whatever, but then we found out that wasn't legal, so he had to run a 250. And then, like I said, the wheels fell off, and Ronnie Mac was out, and we had to get Kevin. Kevin had to go buy a bike and do. I mean, it was nuts, all the stuff that was going on. So then we're like, you know what? And Ryan Sipes, he's like, no, dude, this is my chance. I'm racing Motocross of Nations. I want to put my best foot forward. And he says, then on my fastest 2-stroke, on my clapped out practice bike, I'm 4 seconds a lap faster. So please don't make me ride a 2-stroke.
Right.
And so you gotta give that guy his day, and he did. He rode awesome. He was mixing it up with the world's best, and as I said, a huge fan of Ryan Sipes. And then K-Dub, same thing. You know.
Did you ever expect did they ever anticipate that they would make? Watch out, dogs everywhere in here. Did they ever anticipate that they would have made the A main? I mean, could you even have fathomed that?
They were talking about it, and I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. Then all of a sudden, here we go. And then Kevin was so dead serious in that last chance to make the A main. And then it was crazy because I forget who it was like Brazil and somebody else, and I think it was Sweden. I can't remember what team it was, but we were dicing back and forth, and then like Japan started coming back, and then we're like doing the math, and I'm like, oh my God, we're going to make the main event. And we did, and it was cool to be a part of because we were doing something, giving money back to Puerto Rico, and Travis has some relatives down there, and then with Gabby Catala and all the different stuff, it was a great deal, and honestly, Ustream and AMA, everybody treated us with respect, and honestly, I think the guys were a breath of fresh air for motocross in general, not just Americans, but for motocross in general. They were there because they wanted to be, and it was, as you saw, the crowd loved them. It
was amazing, and it was a hero send off, like you said. You know, I don't think Kevin had got one because he abruptly retired in Supercross. You know, Travis had, he gets a ton of love in the freestyle world, but I don't think he really truly got it in the MX world like he got that weekend. And then again, Ryan Sipes is such an amazing ambassador for two-wheeled racing of all kinds. It was truly awesome and the highlight of the weekend for myself and a lot of people like Nick, of course. And Nick, like Nick said, he was going there entirely to see Ronnie Mac at first, and then changed his focus into the other guys.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was the coolest thing to see. You know, the dudes that I look up to when I was a kid, Pastrana, TP, or K-Dub and Sipes. It you got to see those guys retire all over again in a more appropriate fashion with, as they circled the track, everybody, you could just hear the roar of the crowd, and it was all for those guys. So it was a really cool experience.
Well, RJ,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. No. Well, and one more thing, is that we're not, and I think I've heard you say it a bunch of times, we're not curing brain cancer. We're nothing more, and this goes from Eli to Hurlings to Webb to everybody. You're nothing more than when you were a little kid and you're at school and in kindergarten. You said, "I'll race you to the swing set," and you run across the thing. Right? They're just doing it on expensive motorcycles and stuff like that, and they need to realize, just like I told you, is that you enjoy this time, and you know what? And embrace your competitor. Don't hate them. You need them. Batman needs the Joker, man. And all that shit. You need adversaries healthy to make you fight and make you want to do that. And what bummed me out more than anything is that the pits. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Puerto Rico tent was rocked, and we made sure of that. Mario from Red Bull and everybody took care of us there, and Ron. But back in the day, man, we would go celebrate with England and Italy, and because
No, absolutely.
That's what it should be.
It was the last two nations. I went to obviously Budds Creek. Budds Creek was amazing. The turnout was just as big as, if not as Unadilla. The party after in the Red Bull tent was huge. All the countries together were partying. No matter how anybody did, everybody was celebrating. Then in Colorado, same thing. After the weekend, after Sunday night, all back down the Red Bull tent. And so after the Sunday night, me and my buddy Chad and Nick here and my buddy Tesmer and Gilly, we walk up all the way from the pits up into the pit area. We get some passes from Ash at Monster to get us in up there. And it is dead as fuck. I mean, no one is around. I think it could be part of the weather. It could be part of the new attitude, but it was dead as hell. No one was around. That's why we hung out for a little while. Nothing was going down. And then we had walking back to the pits, and then Gilly ended up finding some of you guys at the Red Bull for a little bit. But it was such a weird, dead vibe. It was such a shitty way to kind of end the weekend. Just like there was no exclamation point. It just kind of went ... etc.
Right, and I agree with you that the weather. I mean, everybody was tired of it, man. I was. It's crazy trying to get out of there, trying to get into the track, and then trying to get out of the track. I mean, it was crazy. And the Ritchie family did an awesome job, accommodating everybody as well as they did. But so yeah, I agree that's part of it. But you know what, needs to be one of those things that everybody needs to get together. And I think it could be an organizational thing. Is that instead of here we're going to go meet at the Sweden pit or the Germany pit or the Holland pit or the American pit. Is we're gonna have a party and all the racers and teams are invited. It's just I want to just see. I don't know. I want to see some more camaraderie amongst the people. Because man, all of a sudden it gets quiet. Next thing you know, you see Jeff Ward at the Day in the Dirt, and you see Brock Glover over here. Then you see David Bailey down at the sandwich shop every now and then, and it's over. And when it's over, man, it's a fucking quiet place.
Yeah, it's a weird time right now. It seems like that they're working. They put some. They feel like they're pushing. The athletes feel like they're pushing them so hard that they're losing some of that enjoyment. And the enjoyment is why we all started, like you said. And then I think we'll keep you rolling longer and stronger.
Awesome.
So one last thing. Quick pick. Who's your 450 outdoor title? Who's going to win it? Eli, Webb, Marvin. Give me one. Is Webb going to come in with a little Supercross hangover? Is Marv unable to put in 24 moto straight? Is Eli just physically stronger through 24 motos?
I think I'm going to put my money on Webb just because his speed and consistency, and I think Eli. I'm going to say Eli. I'm going to say Webb, Tomac, Muskin.
That's a good healthy pick, and I don't think there's anyone's going to kind of come out of the blue for that. When the outdoors, the strongest men survive, and those I think are the three strongest and most confident.
Well, I think Aaron Plessinger can do a good job, but he's doing the same thing. He's riding like a lights bike.
Right. Yeah. He's
Put
not,
that son of a bitch in the neck. Yeah.
Hasn't figured out.
Take two teeth away from his rear sprocket and make him ride around third gear. He'll be fine.
What about the 250 class? Do you follow the 250 class closely as you follow the 450?
Yeah, not as closely. There's a lot of new names and stuff out there, but
what do you think about Covington and Hunter Lawrence coming over from the GPs? To seeing how fast the 250 guys were at the Nations, do you think, and how fast Hunter went to the Nations, do you think that'll translate into these nationals, or are they going to come off? Obviously Covington's got his ass kicked in Supercross and Hunter got hurt, but I'm looking for those two guys to come out strong at Hangtown swinging.
Right, and I think I talked quite a bit with Thomas because his dad and I are good friends, and he was thrown to the lions, and he didn't get a chance to really adapt. And he sent me some video of him, and you can just tell when somebody's scared. You know what I mean? They're not like ugly cry scared, but they're just insecure. You're looking at their body position. You look at how they're jumping stuff, and they're preloading everything because they're thinking about clearing it and not taking time. But I think when you put Thomas in the outdoors, he's going to be definitely a threat. But I think if you look at the Yamaha squad, that bike is so fast, and both of those guys are faster than shit. So that's good. And then so what's happening with the damn, I'm drawing a blank on his name. The kid that
Faulkner.
Austin Faulkner. Is he out or what happened?
He has a torn ACL, and he is he obviously had the fortunate of being off this weekend for Easter or last weekend. This weekend is on East Coast round, and he'll be back. Then he'll be back for Vegas. For Vegas, has he got 2 rounds left? He's got 2 rounds left because he's East Coast.
Yeah, he's racing in New York
this weekend, right?
Yeah. He's racing New York this weekend.
Yeah, New York, Quebec. He had 2 weekends off. So he got off. He got hurt, missed that round. This weekend off, last weekend for Easter, and he'll be back this weekend at Jersey. I've never raced with it. My knees, knock on wood, have always been good. I've never had to deal with something, but the rumor has it that an ACL sometimes isn't as bad. I don't know, but he's gonna do everything he can to try and win this thing, from my understanding. And then I seriously doubt he'll be out for outdoors or be back for outdoors.
Yeah, well, and how bad is it torn? Is it a partial tear? Is it a complete tear? They can do some, remarkable stuff to alleviate pain and this and that, but just stability is the big thing. And that's what happened to me when I got knocked out in '87. Is I had a nicked ACL. I don't know if it wasn't completely ripped, but it was pretty bad. Anyhow, when I came over that triple, and on '87, I came down and you could see me lift my right leg, and my left leg can't support it. You couldn't support it. It bottomed out and it threw me over the bars. And that's the fear that they got to look into, is that how, what can he do? But depending on what his lead is, that kid could cut it back quite a bit and still be top 10. Easy.
He's only got a 3-point lead over Sexton, and I think a 5-point lead over Justin Cooper. And but I guess he'd be doing 2-a-day therapy. He's basically living at some medical place for 24 hours a day. They're, who knows all the hoodoo shit they do nowadays. Jeff Spencer style,
Yeah.
And a shot of pain. I think, in my opinion, for these last 2 rounds of Supercross at Faulkner, I think 80% could still beat Sexton and Cooper, but I guess we'll see. And then for outdoors, he's probably gone. And seeing Cirillo and Ferrandis and Colt Nichols, it's going to be a good series.
But I think in the outdoors, especially the way they do the tracks now, they make them so deep like Redbud was. It was rainy, but still. The way a lot of the tracks are really soft, I think that's going to hurt Cirillo, because he's big, and I think he's definitely fast, and he'll carry the speed as fast as it'll go. But you got these little guys, these little light guys, that can just come out of the corner and carry 2 more mile an hour out of the corner. It'll be interesting to see, but I dig that kid. I'm a huge Adam fan. I love his sense of humor. I love his riding style and all that. So
it's really hard to believe. It's really hard to believe that he came in at 16 years old and looked like he was like 5 foot, 100 pounds, and now the kid's like 6'2", 180. He was obviously thrown to the wolves way too soon.
Yeah, or their growth hormone program was like, well, shit.
Whatever he's taking down in Florida with the college football teams down there, you better knock it off.
It's like me with cologne when I was a kid. It's like, if one pump is good, 15's awesome.
Very nice.
So,
Well, thank you, brother, for calling in. Love you to death. There's a good chance I might see you in Vegas. Some of these Cullinane family people are trying to drag me there, and it looks like it's already happening. So I got your number, and I will definitely track you down for a beer.
and then I want to be on the show again because I want to interview you. I want to talk about the debauchery that was the Arena Cross Series, and I mean, there's obviously some of the things we'll leave alone, but
That's another. That's that might be a show for another time because we didn't even get to the when you were announcing Arena Cross and how we kind of introduced you to our Saturday nights.
Yeah, I think it should be a part two to this for sure.
I felt like when I went to Vegas and same thing. Well, I'm wearing khaki pants and a freaking collared whatever speed shirt, and you guys are like, dude, take that off. Wear this. You're RJ. You can't be dressed like a fucking nerd. You can't be that guy. Same thing when I went to the Vegas thing, and like Jeremy's like, no, go upstairs. I got this casino wear. You're changing your shirt. I'm like, okay, I'm in.
Let's do it. Never afraid, right? Always got to be. Every moment should last. We got to just like a win. Every party, seeing friends. That's the best thing about this moto is meeting your heroes, meeting your friends, and most of the people that we've all known this sport, we've known for almost half our life, if not longer. And that's
it.
It's going down Vegas style.
Well, hey man, keep up the good work. As you know, I'm a big fan. I love hearing what you got to say. And you know what? Everyone needs to thicken their skin a little bit. Like when you say something, you're not hating on Eli. I mean, you're calling a spade a spade. If the guy comes out in a heat race and destroys everybody in the main event, he gets a bad start, and he gets 10th without a broken bike or something like that. What went wrong?
A story is a story, and you got to talk about the story. It's that time of generation where everybody's got a chance to kind of have opinion and a voice, and I like the sport. I love the sport. I love what Eli's capable of doing, but his evil doppelganger, Eli Tomac, will remain, or Eli Tomac. But it's a fun little story. We're having a good time here. We're trying to build something here with Debo's Absurd After Party. I can't thank my friends here at Cullinane Studios, my co-host Nick DeLozier, and one of my biggest heroes ever, Rick Johnson, for being a part of tonight's show.
Awesome. It's always a pleasure. And so it worked out.
Right.
We're a show building slowly. All right, brother. Have a great night.
Thanks, Rick.
Love you, brother. Take
Love
care.
You. Late.
Out.
All right, everybody. Thank you again. Debo Absurd After Party. Eli Tomac, we'll try and get you on next week.